Welcome back to another edition of the Common Constitutionalist Podcast, and I am the Common Constitutionalist coming to you from Miami Beach or New England. I'm not sure which, because the weather has been, well, it hadn't been frightful, that's for sure, and no one's needed a fire that's been delightful, unless I suppose you're homeless and living under a bridge somewhere, maybe. But it was Christmas Eve, I think it was 69 or 68 degrees up here. Some places a little further south, but not much further south, was like 70-something degrees out. On Christmas Eve and Christmas Day was just about as warm. It's just absolutely, man, I'm telling you what, I know that I'm not a fan of man-made global warming. I think it's a complete crock of crap. But if this is what global warming is, brother, count me in. So, at any rate, I hope everybody had a great Christmas. And yesterday, in case you were busy, or you were not a black separatist, yesterday was the start of Kwanzaa, and it runs like through January 2nd or some stupid thing. So, happy Kwanzaa to everybody. All right, that's enough of that nonsense. So the topics for today: Judge Antonin Scalia, the constitutional originalist judge, disagrees with affirmative action, as well he might, and because he disagrees with affirmative action, he's a racist, naturally. There's a new poll out that's just released regarding Democrats and refugees in America. And finally, if I feel like doing it, have the time, it's a Ramadan Christmas. I'll explain if, again, I feel like doing that topic. Today, on the Common Constitutionalist.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
So I guess it's no great revelation that Antonin Scalia, the great constitutional conservative judge of the Supreme Court, is a racist. I guess no one should be surprised by that revelation, at least as far as the left is concerned. And how dare he disagree in court, no less, about over affirmative action. He disagrees with the whole premise of affirmative action, and so naturally that has to make him a racist, of course. This comes from oral arguments or questioning by the judges, Scalia in particular, over a second hearing of the Supreme Court for an affirmative action case, Fisher versus University of Texas in Austin, to be specific. The case goes all the way back to 2008. A couple of white students were denied entry into the University of Texas in Austin, and they are saying it was because of affirmative action that they were actually denied entry, and blacks were given preferential treatment over them. Now, I don't know. I haven't really studied the case, but it sounds, at least at first blush, reasonable. Frankly, what isn't reasonable is the fact that the case started in the lower courts in 2008, and since then, this Fisher woman ended up getting into and attending another university, and has long since graduated college with a finance degree or something like that. So that's the real tragedy of this, is that it takes so bloody long for these cases to wind their way through the court system in America. It's absurd, but that's a discussion for another day, I suppose. This is all about racism, so that's much more important. Now, Scalia's line of questioning or comments goes back to the affirmative action case, this case in particular, and he basically said that affirmative action is doing some of these slower black students, and slower academically, of course. They could be white students. What's the difference? But affirmative action is actually hindering the progress of these black students because affirmative action is allowing them to get into these more elite universities. I wasn't aware that University of Texas at Austin was an elite university, but maybe it is. I don't know. But by getting into these elite universities, they show up and then they actually have to perform, so to speak. Not so to speak. They actually have to perform. And they're falling behind, they're dropping out and whatnot. And his argument is to, rather than use affirmative action to get these kids into these elite schools where they fail more often, well, I don't know if it's more often than not, but they fail at a great percentage, is to get rid of affirmative action and just allow these kids allow them a slower track to get into a less prestigious school where they can actually get through school, learn something, get a degree, and make something out of themselves. Boy, if that's racist, count me in. But that's what it is. Anything that you say that's against the blacks is racist. Harry Reid thinks so, the great affirmative action activist that he is. He said, where is it? I don't know about his intent, Scalia that is, but it is deeply disturbing to hear a Supreme Court justice endorse racist ideas from the bench on the nation's highest court. Oh, Harry, get out to pasture, Harry. You're done, man. But then again, we shouldn't expect anything less or more in this case from Harry. He's a jerk. He's just a freaking jerk is all he is. But Scalia, and this is a perfectly logical argument of Scalia's, and I don't think the questions are out of bounds at all. Why can't we just get rid of affirmative action because of this? It's doing nobody any good. Once these kids have to perform, once they're in school, then now it's not like high school. College isn't like high school unless you're an elite athlete, and then it is like high school. You get to go to basket weaving and psychology classes, and if you happen to graduate, well, whatever. Hope you make your money in sports. That's all I got to say. But as it turns out, Justice Scalia had a kind of a rather strange bedfellow as far as is concerned. A liberal UCLA law professor actually wrote a book back in 2012, and the book was entitled Mismatch: How Affirmative Action Hurts Students It's Intended to Help and Why Universities Won't Admit It. Of course they're not going to admit it. In his book, Taylor summarizes, racial preferences in higher education put a great many students in educational settings where they have no hope of competing, a phenomenon they call mismatching. And there is compelling evidence that shows that racial preferences actually double the rate at which black students fail bar exams and may well, in the end, reduce rather than increase the aggregate of a number of black lawyers. Well, that's a shame, but it isn't. Because a black, white, red, green, or Martian, we don't need any more freaking lawyers. Thank you very much. And that's the problem with all these daggum liberal policies. I'd like to say they mean well, but they kind of don't. Maybe some of them they're misguided, yeah, but maybe the initiators of these policies meant well. Affirmative action, they meant well. They wanted to get a leg up for the black students because of racism and whatever. Now, maybe it started out that way, but just like every other government program or every other anything that the government's involved with, it becomes a total one-size-fits-all deal. And this is what's happened with affirmative action. I don't think it was ever any good, frankly, because it's trying to level the playing field. And in a free society, the playing field can never be leveled. It's just that simple. As a matter of fact, I guess that's the definition of socialism, or one of the many definitions or something of socialism. is that the playing field is supposed to be level for everyone. Everybody gets an equal share of the misery, and it's the same thing with affirmative action. It's supposed to level the playing field between whites and blacks, and that's just not the case. And it's a shame that it's not the case, but it isn't. Many blacks, it's not their fault, but it just is what it is. Many blacks come from inner city schools. They're dilapidated. The condition of the school isn't as big a deal as the condition of the environment. And it's just a tragedy, these schools. And then out of one side of their mouth, people like Harry Reid condemn Justice Scalia for racism, for not going along or disagreeing with affirmative action. And on the very other side of their mouth, they're taking away the voucher program for the Washington, D.C. school district. Now, how does that make any sense? Logically, it doesn't have to make any sense because it isn't about the students. It's not about the black students. It's not about the white students, the Hispanics, the Islamics, or the Muslims, whatever. It's never about them. It's always about the money. It's always about the power. And it's always about the control of these dirtbag liberals that institute these policies. It's just the way it is. Even if they start out well-intentioned, this is what they end up with. And as is no surprise, again, I agree with Supreme Court Justice Scalia, who should have been Chief Justice Scalia, in my opinion. But hey, that's another topic for another day. But just to say that affirmative action should go away in toto, period. Just get rid of everything involved in affirmative action. Let the kids get into school, the school that they're meant to get into, and just educate them. Forget the politics, forget all the other bull crap, and particularly forget the affirmative action to get them into these schools. Just get them in. If they go to junior college, teach them, give them the rudimentary skills, and let them go. That's the way it should be done.
You're listening to Becoming Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
Anyone who has kids or has had kids who are grown and out of the house understands this completely. You watch a lot of kids' movies when you're a parent. In specific, you watch a lot of Disney cartoon movies. At least I know I did. One of them was Aladdin, the one with the Robin Williams as the genie. And must have seen that sucker I don't know how many dozen times. But I can't like some of them. I could probably quote you half the lines in the movie. Aladdin we didn't see quite as many times, but we did see it a number of times. Well, in Aladdin, the city that the movie takes place in is a city called Agrabah in the Middle East, okay, or I don't know if it's India or wherever the heck it is, but it's Agrabah, so I think it's somewhere in the Middle East. And, of course, it is a fictional city. But recently, the leftists at the Public Policy Polling Unit added a question on a survey for Republicans. And the survey question was, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to paraphrase, basically, as a Republican voter, would you be in favor of bombing Agrabah? Would you support bombing Agrabah? Public policy polling knowing full well that Agrabah is a fictional Middle Eastern city. And the response they got was 30% of Republican voters would support such a bombing. Now, everybody on the left had a big chuckle over what dimwits the Republicans are, and they're so ill-informed, and they're such backwood hicks that they would bomb a fictional Middle Eastern city just because it sounds like it might be Middle Eastern, and so they're racist, and they're Islamophobes, and all the other little racist undertones that could be derived from that survey question. And so the left had a fine chortle over that, the folks at CNN and MSNBC, and what a bunch of freaking dopey rubes the Republicans are. Well, I understand that, I mean, if you're going to be polled, whether it's an internet poll or an in-person survey or a phone poll, just be honest. If you don't know what something is, just say you don't know. Whoop-de-doo. But these people, like a lot of people, and I'm not blaming anybody for it, they try to fake their way through it. Agrabah does sound like a Middle Eastern city. Could have very well been a real Middle Eastern city. And so, sure, go ahead and turn it like Ted Cruz it is. Turn it into glass, baby. So anyway, like I said, the Democrats and the leftists had a great chortle over that. Oh, the stupid Republicans. Well, it turns out that the folks at WPA Research got wind of this public policy polling. WPA means stands for Wilson Perkins Allen Opinion Research Group, and they decided to have a little fun at the Democrats' expense. Hooray for them! Yay! So, at any rate, their question to Democrats was, the brilliant leftist mind. But their question was, would you support or oppose allowing refugees from Agrabah to be resettled in the United States? Okay? So, again, good for the goose, good for the gander, baby. And the response was 44% of Democrats would support taking refugees from Agrabah. They could have just said from the moon, and it would have been the same thing. What's the difference? These people don't have clue one any more than the Republican people did. And what's worse is that when you start to get into the younger set, the even dumber set, I hate to say, the less informed Twitter set, Facebook set, Instagram set, who knows every square inch of Kim Kardashian's fanny, doesn't know squat about politics or the world in general. 44% of Democrats would support taking refugees from Agrabah. Okay? Now, when you drop it from the even more dim-witted Democrat set, the socialist set, among younger Democrats ages 18 to 34, the support rose to 66%. So 66% of Democrat respondents, the brilliant Democrats, would support refugees from Agrabah, the fictional city. So I just thought that was classic. And actually I think it was only 27% would oppose it. I don't know what the Republican results ended up being as far as the bombing of Agrabah. But maybe you could bring all the refugees over from Agrabah and then you could bomb it. See, that's an idea. But this really is just it's a practice in silliness, frankly. It's one-upmanship. But I understand on both sides of the aisle, the left wants to appear compassionate, and the right wants to appear tough on, defense and getting rid of ISIS and whatnot. And so you throw in something that they're not familiar with. It sounds Middle Eastern, so that makes perfect sense that Democrats would respond in kind and Republicans would respond the way you would think that they'd respond. It's just all practice in ridiculousness. But, hey, it's a fun topic. What the heck?
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
Well, I guess I am going to cover this topic after all. Seems silly to keep it to myself. It's such a fabulous topic. So wonderful and Christmassy, holiday-like. So it's a Ramadan Christmas, at least in Minnesota anyway. where One News Now reported that a choir teacher in Minnesota thought it was a good idea to have students, now dig this, to have students perform a song about Ramadan during a Christmas concert. A number of parents, however, disagreed. Gee, you think? Well, let's just, first off, let's put all the other bull crap aside. Let's put the obvious aside. Ramadan normally happens, not normally, it happens between June and July every year. This past Ramadan went from June 17th to July 17th. Now, so how in heaven's name does that apply to Christmas? How does any of this stuff, you're going to do a 4th of July song in Christmas too? It's about as appropriate and timely, frankly. You're going to do some Halloween tunes, do the Charlie Brown Halloween theme. Is that what you're going to do next, you dopes? So the report continued, the Islamic song, I can't get over the dopiness of this whole thing. The Islamic song performed last week by 9th graders at Blaine High School, right along with Away in a Manger and Silent Night, including the song about Ramadan, and it included the phrase, Allahu Akbar. I mean, really? I mean, oy vey. I'll throw a little Yiddish in there just to tick them off, just to tick them off even more, I suppose. So One News Now sought out a Christian attorney from the Pacific Justice Institute. His name is Brad Dacus, or Dacus, I guess it is, and got his opinion on the Christmas concert, the Ramadan. It's a Ramadan Christmas. And he said, this phrase has become a mantra for terrorism, for brutality, for murder, for death and destruction. Therefore, I think it's very, very, at the very least, inappropriate for a teacher to feel so compelled in the guise of political correctness to be completely insensitive to what these words have come to mean. And that's, you'll hear from CARE, and you'll hear from ISNA and ICNA and RICNA and SHMICNA and all these other Islamic organizations that Allahu Akbar means God is great and has nothing to do with terrorism. But the fact is, in modern day society, in modern day civilization, it is synonymous with terrorism. Muslims, as they're wiping people out and just before their suicide vest goes off, aren't screaming, Jesus is great. Sorry, it just isn't. That's the way it is, and this guy is dead on right, and he's right about the political correctness. This want for inclusiveness it just flies in the face of any common sense at all. How is this teacher not sensitive to? Doesn't the teacher know that it's going to tick a bunch of people off? Is that why the teacher did it? Did he or she, doesn't specify which, but it's probably a woman. Didn't she even think that this is probably what's going to happen? I mean, the insanity. There's the stupidity, the guilt involved in these people who want inclusiveness above all else, above safety, security, everything else. Their want for political correctness is going to kill us all. And these people, I can't believe the students even went along with this thing. If it was my kid, he would have come home and said, Dad, this is what they want me to sing. And I would have said, son, let's take a ride. And we're going to sit down with the principal and we're going to give him or her what for until they cease this, or you're taken out of the choir. Period. You're not going to be involved in this. It is the most absurd thing, but as a lot of what happens in a lot of public schools, they never inform the teachers of what they're going to do, particularly if it's something devious like this. It's just absurd. Actually, this started out to be a fun little topic, and it's ticking me the crap off. So, I can't stand it. I'm done. Y'all have a great day. Have a great weekend. And have a great New Year's. Safe. Please be safe. Don't be stupid. Going out on New Year's is for the young and stupid. It's not for the old and stupid. So, stay home. Don't watch the ball drop because those guys are idiots too. Be with your family. God bless you all, and we'll talk to you next week. This is the Common Constitutionalist signing off.